This is the ZMAR Podcast. Elite Benefits of America helps small and mid-sized companies with their health insurance programs. And now, your host, Butch ZMAR.
Welcome back to the ZMAR Podcast. Today I have Kaitlin Borncamp with me, and we're going to talk a little bit about nutrition and maybe even bring it to the workplace and how to bring out more personal development with people, maybe through nutrition. Welcome to the show, Kaitlin.
Thanks, Butch. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem. Let's talk about how you got to this program you call Feel Great with Kait. And so can you talk to us about that whole journey and all the way up until now?
Yeah, definitely. So, my background is in corporate consulting. And so along the way, I had found myself just wanting to learn more about health and wellness for my own personal journey and performance. And really that had started years ago when I had experienced an eating disorder, actually. So my relationship with food was very unhealthy at one point in time. And since then, it had migrated to doing all the things like the calorie counting, the macro counting, trying all the different things. And really, it took me a long time to find a healthy balance and to really learn about how, nutrition and food and sleep and all that sort of things actually impact my performance. And I want to share what I've learned with other people, and through that passion and really willingness and being open to sharing it with other people so that they don't have to go through the same, struggle and tribulation. And most importantly, prevent a lot of the things from the beginning. And so that is a passion project that I had started a few years ago. And now I'm really, really passionate about helping high achieving professionals, optimize their health from a sustainable perspective.
And it looks like the packages you put together for people, at least this was from my perspective, and of course, foods, I have an intimate relationship with foods, and I'm sure a lot of people other, but you broke it down a little bit that makes it easier, at least from the appearance. You could talk about how you broke down the packages to make it easier for people to make those transitions from your initial call and to some of your session packages.
Yeah, definitely. So I like to work with people through a 3-step process, which first is assessing, second step is restore, and third step is maintaining and sustaining. So throughout that process, we go into a full assessment of where people are at today. I think that's the most important part. Is oftentimes people, one, they don't know where to start, but most importantly, it's like, well, what's going to work for you is going to be different than somebody else next to you, because we're all in a different place right now from how we got here today to what your body needs right now. So that's really the first part, is assessing what you and your body need today, and then working through that and restoring the body, the imbalances in the body, both from a nutritional perspective, right? Definitely through food, also through supplements where needed, and then most importantly through mindset, because I have found that we don't have a lack of information right now. Like, we're an information overload, in fact. And if you go onto the corners of the internet, you're going to find a reason to do everything and a reason to do not to do everything, right? And so there's so much conflicting information out there as well. And so really putting it into a bite-sized format where people can understand the changes that we can make to support their bodies to get them back in balance, but also want to maintain them, because that was another thing, again, from my background of having, an eating disorder and just also disordered eating, like thinking that I was eating healthy, but then going too extreme with it, where it's like, I find that most people I work with and come across are actually very type A perfectionists, overachievers, and we want to do it right. We want to figure out what's the exact right amount of calories I need in my body. And so there's also like the flip side to it, where you're coming at it from a very extreme perspective. And so being able to support the mindset along the way to create it and create these new habits in a healthy way is equally as important as the food itself.
So I'm going to dive into a little bit deeper into the restore process, because some of it's a mindset, right? But we're busier than ever. You're saying information overload, so is our schedule, right? And so obviously some of your clients, that one of the reasons they reach out because they're struggling, but I assume they're still struggling through the process. But how do you work with people that are just busy and how to break those old habits? They say, what was it, 3 weeks or 6 weeks to break an old habit? How long does it take to break a food habit? Because I could see that very hard to beat.
It depends. Yeah, this is a great question. I think it depends on which habit it is, right? Like if it's a certain food craving that can be easily countered with like a nutrient imbalance. So for example, I hear from a lot of women like craving chocolate is a common sign of a magnesium deficiency. And oftentimes it goes hand in hand because most of us are overstressed. Stress depletes magnesium, right? It's a really common thing. So I find that supplementing with magnesium helps pretty early on curb your cravings for chocolate. Now, if it's something more like you're craving, other sweets like actual sugar or soda, or you have like a habit of getting a certain treat every day after dinner or what have you, it depends. Like it can take a little bit longer because in that case, if you're craving sweets, it's more about, balancing blood sugar, for example, and a whole bunch of other things go into that. It's not just like as easy as just taking a magnesium supplement. So I think it depends. It also depends, I found, on people's openness. Right. So again, coming back to mindset, like this is what I always love when I when I talk to new people, is just appreciating where they're at, because everyone has a different concept of what wellness looks like for them. And also they're on a different point in their journey. So by that, I mean, if somebody's just finding like, hey, I need to be eating healthier and like I'm currently eating like crap, if it's the first time that they're trying something to be quote unquote healthier, they're probably going to fail at it a little bit more, versus if somebody is coming to me with like a chronic illness and they're like, I've tried everything, just tell me what to do. That person's going to do everything I tell them to do. Right. And so they're much more like invested. They have more skin in the game.
So you made one comment, blood sugar, and I think when we spoke previously, part of your session packages or part of your counseling, that there's some blood work involved. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Can you talk about like what's the process for that, and then also like what do you use that information for in your consultations?
Yeah. So the process is really easy. We run it at the beginning, so the initial assessment as well as the reassessment at 90 days to see how are things trending, how are we doing, and that tells us a lot of information about certain imbalances in the body, also some patterns, right? So I'm not a doctor, so I don't treat or diagnose, but it's actually more helpful than that, in my opinion, because most medical doctors are trained through what are called, like diagnosable ranges. So they won't tell you something's wrong unless it gets out of a really wide range and then you have, whatever problem. But I'm trained in functional ranges. And so it's really looking at certain markers to say, hey, we're getting near this outside of this functional range. That could mean XYZ is causing this. And then from there, we kind of see, that's my job as a professional to come in and say, I'm seeing these patterns and prioritizing how we want to approach that. Because typically what happens is, most of us, none of us are perfect. We have like, let's just say 10 things that we could work on. Sure. But again, going back to information overload, if we support all those 10 things today, like if I gave you a list of 100 things to work on, you'd be like, I'm not going to do any of them because it's too much, right?
Yes.
But the good news about the body is that if you support, like the main area, like let's just say top priority number one, you're inevitably also going to be supporting the other 9 areas that also need support. So that works in our favor too. So to answer your question, the blood work gives us a good picture of what's going on within the body. I view it as so we do a full assessment of symptoms. That's what the body is sort of telling us like externally. That's what you're able to notice about what's going on in your body. And then the blood work is sort of like that inside picture of, hey, like, is there something else that we're missing that maybe doesn't have like a big symptom that you'd be able to notice right away?
So I've fallen off the bandwagon a little bit. I'm a big ultra runner, and I wouldn't say big. I'm a big enthusiast for it. I have completed 50 miles, and I always said during those training runs that I wish I had this dashboard, right? To tell me what I'm missing, what can I add to it? Am I overtraining? Should I shorten it up? Should I do more? Like if I only had a dashboard, and it sounds like the lab work that you actually get is kind of like that dashboard that you have, and you take it in the beginning, you take it in 90 days to kind of give that snapshot. Another thing in a previous statement you made, you talked about mindset. So I think this is a good segue to, I'm curious on how was your mindset when you did the ice plunge? Yeah, I tell you, I've never done one fully. I've only done it in different parts of the body, hands, feet, whatever, knees. How was that? What was that like? And when we talk about that mindset, I think you put 5 minutes on the board. And so that's a pretty impressive number. And so talk about that mindset you had to go through to get in that tub.
Yeah, thank you. I will say cold plunging isn't as extreme as running 50 miles. So you're doing well on that. But yeah, cold plunging has been something I've been more interested in recently in the last few months, just learning about the different health benefits. But also it's like the mindset around getting into it is every time I never want to do it. And that's part of also why I make myself do it, is because I have found that it helps me in other areas of my life. And so when I'm thinking about the cold plunge, I've already made the decision that I'm going to do it. And then when it's about to happen, I'm like, getting ready for it, seeing other people maybe doing it before me. And I know it's cold. It's just this resistance, like utter resistance. Like I hate the feeling of being cold. I don't enjoy it. But I know it's going to be short-lived, and I've done it before. So I know that I can do it again. And I actually have found, I've learned now, by doing cold plunging with other people, social accountability really helps me a lot. And I don't, nobody else cares how long I'm in the cold plunge for. They really are not even looking at me, but just having other people to be like, okay, this is what we're doing. Like it helps legitimize it for me to be like, all right, yes, Kaitlin, you're going to do the cold plunge. And yeah, I happened to be at a conference the other week where they had a complimentary cold plunge, and it was really fun. So we got up early before a conference, and yeah, it was good. It was fun. It was something to look forward to and to try. I didn't plan on doing it, but it was available, so I wanted to take advantage of that.
Sure. Now it sounds like it's a repeated event, right? So I'm curious, what was the first time you did it? How long were you in the barrel?
The first time I did it was years ago when I went to some nice Breckenridge resort, and they had what's called like a grotto, where they had, it's like a little room where they have all the nice things with the hot tub and the cold plunge. And I was like, oh, I've heard of this cold plunge thing. Let's try it. And I think I was in it for 15 seconds or something. I was like, yeah, absolutely not.
I mean, it's something I want to do, especially if I ever get back to all the running. But like you said, the social aspect is really cool, because I tell you, that first 50 miles I did, if it wasn't for the people on the trail, I don't know if I would have made it. I mean, they're just fantastic people. Ultra runners are completely different than marathon runners, and they're a lot more laid back and very social on top of it. I mean, they're eating pizza and having whiskey on the run, but marathon runners don't really do that. But we definitely need ice after the fact. So back to the idea of being super busy, overscheduled, overworked, right? So, and a lot of things that we do on this podcast, we talk about the employer place setting, right? And so like a lot of these employees are overworked, right? They're driving, they're dropping the kids off, they're picking them up. And so, like, what are some ideas that you give to some of your clients about how to manage some of that when it comes to I know we're talking a lot about nutrition, which I think is a key piece of it, at least from my perspective, but then also that balance, right? I'm just as guilty, even though I have this fancy watch that gives me the tinger of getting up and going for a walk, and I never do, right? And so there's that balance, right? So what are some of those ideas that you help share with some of the people in the workplace of making it a little bit better?
I think it's about identifying where you're at. So are you somebody who really loves your job and it's just taking everything out of you? Like you genuinely love the job, but it's just defeating you? Because in that case, it's all about reframing it to say, how can I fill my cup up? Like, how can I transition my days to actually support myself from a physical perspective? And in that way, I think it's easy for people in that sense, because they're like, yes, I want to perform better at my job. I love it. How can I be better? Right. If you're coming at it from more of like, I'm just busy and burnt out, like I don't have energy for my job. I don't even have energy to go, grocery shopping. The last thing I want to do is think about, changing up my whole diet and taking supplements, because that sounds like a lot of work. We need to take a step back. We need to calm things down. We need to really assess what got us here and how is that impacting you? Because at the end of the day, again, it's like we don't have an lack of information problem. So if somebody's in that place, I think that they just haven't been able to realize for themselves, like, where is this leading them and how is it serving them? In that case, it's not serving them. So it's sort of, it's like a roundabout answer, which is to realize that it's not working for them is the first step. And then you can change, because, I heard this one saying one time, and it's like, if you don't have time to meditate for 5 minutes, you need to meditate for an hour.
I think I heard that once before.
If you own a business, Elite Benefits of America wants to remind you that health insurance open enrollments are either happening now or coming very quickly. And this is the time to review and implement a healthcare plan to make or keep you as the employer of choice. Deadlines for open enrollment range between November 1st and January 1st. Get ahead of the curve. The Small Business Special Enrollment Period, part of the Affordable Care Act, now allows employers with 49 employees and under to offer health benefits without contributing a dime to the employee plan. Help your employees save money on taxes with health insurance they're already paying for with their hard-earned dollars. Butch Zemar from Elite Benefits of America wants you to reach out to him today. Visit elitebenefits.net or call 708-535-3006.
one other thing I want to bring up about, and we keep talking, going back to foods, but you're working on this Nutrition Basics online course. There's a wait list, so anybody that's listening to this, go ahead and sign up for Kaitlin's wait list for that. What are a couple ideas that are going to come out of that online course that people are waiting for?
Yeah, really walking people through what I call the pillars of health and the daggers of disease. So really understanding like what are the things that we need that, we if missing from the pillar would cause the rest of the foundation to crumble, right? And so those include things, definitely nutrition, sleep, movement, passion, community, just like a sense of purpose, all of it. Because the more I find, how food impacts our body, and then I learn about how so let me just break it down with like kind of the principle of why when we talk about nutrition and wellness, so many other factors come into play, because I think that was something that was new to me. So I approached initially early on wellness from a weightlifting perspective. Like I was just trying to change the way I looked. I was just trying to be more lean, skinny, right? And then I found nutrition. I was like, oh, okay, food, this whole other category is like, yeah, I guess what we eat 3 times a day, that also impacts our body, right? Duh. Like that's an easy way for people to be like, yes, that makes sense. But I think what a lot of us miss is that what is the end result of like the food we eat, or such as like lifting weights, right? It's a reaction and a physical process that's happening within our body. Most of which, thankfully, we don't know much about. It's happening subconsciously. Our body just does it for us. It's beautiful. But the thing I want to get across is that all these other things in and around our environment also have similar physical effects on our body, right? Like sleep, being outside in the sun, or not being outside in the sun, like being inside all day. Lack of friendship or like a really strong support group, all those things have similar impacts to our body. And so now that I've been able to see, how nutrition, for example, can support us, I view the other categories of the pillar of health and daggers of disease in the same way, because it's ultimately supporting like our body in the best way that we know how. And so I think the daggers of disease is a concept I came up with because I always feel I'm always sort of torn as to, do we give more of the good first, or do we take away the bad first? It's always like this really delicate balance of, depending on the situation, somebody might have, like the classic example in functional medicine is living in mold. You cannot get better if you're living in mold, or if you have even if you're working in mold. Most, I think the last stat I saw was 60% of the buildings in America are moldy. So it's unfortunate, right? This is a really serious problem that we have. So if you are experiencing something like mold, you need to remove that before any other process in your body will even begin to start functioning again. So that's one where it's like, yeah, you have to take that one out first. And so it's this delicate balance of giving enough of what we need and taking out what's actually harmful to us.
So yeah, you bring up an interesting point about the mold, and you said 60% of the buildings have it, but in order to change you have to change the environment before there's any progress. But all encompassing, I'm curious on where you're seeing trends here, and not only with something like that, but maybe in the workplace, at home, where nutrition, whether it's balance, like what are you seeing trends that we're seeing going forward? I know COVID totally derailed a lot of us, but what are you seeing going forward? What kind of outlooks are you looking at? Are you looking at people moving to the positive, or is there a mix?
I think overall it's positive in the sense that the awareness that people have now for how important their health is, and how, the things I touched on actually do impact our health. Is good. I think that that's something that people are really hungry for more information on these topics, and they want to learn it. It's coming at it from a really good place. I think also what's trending and what's coming is, unfortunately, we live in an environment, right, where our food and our daily habits are a product of our conveniences. And also, with my business background, I can appreciate as to the companies that are producing these products that we're buying also are making a profit, right? We all understand business case. So what's the short end of the stick? Like our health ends up coming at the cost of our health. And so what that is causing is we need to take personal responsibility, on a ground level for each of us. Where I do see some really cool things trending is actually, like you mentioned, right? Like with the watcher, you have a lot of time out there thinking when you're ultra running, I imagine. Yes. So you're thinking about that dashboard, right? There's a lot of cool technologies that I've seen, and I want to learn more about, different wearables that give us real-time data. For example, like in my practice, I'm exploring having my clients use a continuous glucose monitor because it's now becoming much more affordable. So it's the trend that we see in technology, right? Where whether or not people realize this, right? Like red light, super popular right now. That's athletes were using that over 10 years ago, and it was thousands of dollars. It's just like that, right? Similar to cold plunging, now it's becoming more socially acceptable.
Right.
And so it's just like that. This trend is just going to continue to happen for the better as well. So on one end, we're kind of fighting like the conveniences in our modern world and our habits, like human habits just lead us, or human instincts. But the invention of all these cool technologies, I think, will really help us and just becoming more aware, right? So giving us that data and making it more personal, because again, I think it's easy to have all this information like as separate from us, right? Like I can read an interesting article or a book, but then at the end of the day, you're like, yeah, I'm going to keep going about my day and live my life the way I want to. So unless you have like data about you specifically, like today, so for example, like in my life, I use an Oura ring and I've used it for now, I think going on 3 years, and I love that thing. I've learned so much about my sleep, and I now know I can kind of like predict like, okay, if I have, a cocktail or something, my sleep is going to decline. And so it deters me from drinking, because now I know my sleep is so important to me and how much better I feel when I do have it. And that also kind of plays into, supporting myself through struggling with depression over the years. And so it's given me that data. Whereas before I felt like, I knew I kind of didn't feel very good if I didn't sleep well, but you see what you can get away with, right? I'm very stubborn and I like to see what I can get away with, as does everyone, right? And so the advent of these wearables and these technologies for more bio-individual information will be really helpful.
Back to the ultra running, at some point you just start giving up watt tracking and all that stuff. You just kind of like, forget it, I'll just keep going, and the only thing you have to worry about is water at that point, but and a little bit of food to keep you moving. But on some of those ultra runs, trails, the only thing that keeps you going is each aid station has a little shot of whiskey waiting for you, has your name on it, and so you just kind of keep moving, even though you're so dehydrated, it's just going to be absorbed right away anyways, and so it doesn't make any impact. But one of the questions I want to ask before we wrap things up is that you're a certified nutritional therapy practitioner. Can you give us a little background on what that is, and why did you seek it out, and what are you doing? How are you using it for your clients?
Definitely. So as an NTP, I'm trained in understanding the different systems of our body, and most importantly, how are they supposed to function in a proper way, and what it looks like when they're not functioning in a proper way, as well as assessing different symptoms that maybe give us clues as to which systems are out of balance. And it's really based on, a functional approach through lifestyle, diet, and nutrition. And how I got into that was, like I shared, it's like I felt so passionate about my own personal journey, and I wanted to do more. I wanted to expand my own knowledge. And once I opened up that door to determine, hey, I do want to go through a formal training process here and get certified and actually potentially help other people, it just seems like a really good fit, because it's a very foundational knowledge of how the body system works. And it also allows me to give that information back to people and to help them see how their symptoms are equating to their personal health as well.
Definitely a great thing, a great topic, great subject matter. And I think a lot of people need to listen to what you have going on. And so if anybody wanted to get in touch with you, reach out to you to get more information, definitely encourage signing up. I know you have a wait list for that online program, but then you also still have scheduling ongoing sessions. Can you share with our audience, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can find me at Instagram, Feel Great with Kait. I'm active on there. And also on LinkedIn. Well,
this has been great. I appreciate your time with this, and I think the information that you shared with us will help people not only in the workplace but at home, and get that balance back and get things headed in the right direction. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Butch.